As the 70s drew to a close, the training wheels were off. Canada was ready to innovate in the game show space, and it would do so with some of the most inventive games ever made. The first would be created by a homegrown hero who learned at the feet of an all-time great. Dan Enright was a famed American game show producer who was blackballed from the industry for his involvement in the 1950s quiz show scandals. When he came to Canada, he mentored talented youngsters like Sidney M. Cohen.
When I first started doing game shows, I was much younger than today. There was a lot of game show production in Canada on a very low level. Game shows had a lot of intrinsic drama, and I kind of took to the concept of game shows like a duck to water. I had a spring in my step and I was able to bounce around. I just fell in love with them. Whenever a game show came along in those early days, it would be assigned to me to do. Puppet People I did back in 1972. The host was Jerry Lane, the ventriloquist. Jerry was a phenomenal puppeteer. He created all the puppets himself.
Your teammate. Oh, my teammate here is this good-looking young fella.
The kids had to answer questions based on little sketches that we had presented to them. They took hours to do a 3-minute sketch. And we would do them all night long when the studio wasn't busy. And I'd come home sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning from doing these things. But they were a lot of fun. And the kids loved it. And it was early days for those kinds of shows. We just all learned on the job. We really did. I was fortunate to work with people like Nick Nicholson and Roger Muir, who were American game show entrepreneurs, Jack Barry and Dan Enright. So those people really taught me my craft properly. And I said, how come all these people are American, they're coming to Canada, and we're paying them royalties and there's no Canadian game shows? So I said, if they can do it, I can do it too. I sat down at my little desk and put a show together for Canadians.
In just a few moments, two lucky couples will start on the road to thousands of dollars in cash and prizes on The Mad Dash!
The Mad Dash, what a charming show that is. The basic idea was humans on a board game. It just looks fun. That's the thing of it. It looks like something you'd want to do yourself.
I sent it to Arthur Weinthal, who was then the vice president of production at CTV. He kind of liked the idea. He gave me a little bit of money. I loaded the audience with friends and relatives. Couldn't afford a host. I couldn't find anybody, so I did it myself.
Is the animal on the back of a Canadian nickel a fox, a deer, or a
beaver?
Beaver is right. Good for you. Good luck.
The feeling for me when I did the pilot was great, but when I did the first episode that was going to go to air, it was the greatest day of my life.
And it was a long-running show. It was hosted by Pierre Lalonde, who was a well-known singer in Montreal at the time. 2 contestants on each of 2 teams. One stood at the podium and answered questions and rolled the die. You got a question right, you rolled the die, and your partner was the pawn on a game board.
Canada at the time did not offer very big prizes for game shows. So what I did was I put all the prizes I could legally on the board.
And a 20 is $30. That is yours.
Put that in your pocket, my friend.
And if you got to the finish, you won the game and claimed all of your prizes on the side.
I would have a question like, stir, damn. What do you do to soup? Stir. They were designed for you to be able to get the answer. It was a race to the buzzer, really.
Rome.
Rome, Colosseum. That's right.
You shout out the answers when you're watching it.
2, 3, breakaway.
Sidney Cohen's creation was unabashedly Canadian, from its production values all the way down to the questions.
A lot of times I was told when I was producing shows, don't talk about Canada. I don't think it's very different today. Yeah, all the shows, Toronto was disguised, but this show, we didn't disguise. We were just Canadian. I didn't care, and didn't hurt us one bit. You get letters from Oregon, Vermont. A silly show and a fun show is the same for everybody. We would get the ratings very regularly. We did better in the summertime because a lot of children liked the show. Half of the people watching television at that particular hour were watching my show. We did over 300 shows. It was a lot of fun. When the show came to an end, unfortunately, it was very bittersweet for me. I worked hard to resurrect the show.
Even though the Mad Dash left Canadian airwaves, Sidney Cohen never gave up on every game show creator's dream to see it licensed in another country, to live another day.
I was fortunate to sell it again.
But not where you'd expect.
Poland, Switzerland, or Sweden? Poland, that's right.
It's the first Canadian show that I'm aware of in English to be produced overseas. I traveled overseas with a friend of mine. He says, I'm going to come with you and bring my professional camera and we'll document the thing. I was in Łódź, Poland. I went to consult and make sure that the show was done similarly to what we did. The name of the show was called Duete do Mete, which I believe means two people to the finish. I had to make sure I had created a Bible for them to work off of. A Bible is like a manual which has the rules of the game. They were very eager to get my input. I don't speak Polish. I figured out some of the language a little bit, but I understood what they were doing because it's universal. Something about television. Tell us something or other. They had a mascot, which was like a little kangaroo. Don't ask me why, but they did. What's his name? Dasher. Yeah. Just like the reindeer. Dasher. Walked into the studio and was amazed to see my show in a foreign land.
This is phenomenal. Look at this place.
Woo! Sidney finally got to see his show as he originally envisioned it, a big budget blockbuster.
It's beautiful.
The board was a little more streamlined. They were using more modern electronics than we had in the day when I was just using cardboard and sandpaper on the floor. They built a little lake in the middle of the set.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's exactly what's going to happen.
They had a car sitting on the set, and I said, what's the car for? And they said, it's a prize. I went, holy mackerel.
A Mercedes-Benz. Yeah. On Duete do Mete. Yeah. Yeah.
One person, the producer or the director, knows what's happening, and you've got to translate that to everybody and get them as enthusiastic about it as you are.
Where's the camera? Over there. Yeah. Hi, Mom.
There was a huge crew in Poland, for example, maybe 30, 40 people on set, from lighting people to set designers, costume people, carpenters, and steel workers. So all of them had to be blended into a cohesive unit and had only a week to get the show ready.
The day had come. Tensions were high as Sidney and the crew made their final tweaks and the Polish audience poured in.
They can hit that 500 twice, and I think that 500 is too much there. Let's go.
Duety! Jest trójka! Wreszcie trójka! Wymęczona długo trójka! Ile czasu to trwało? Do widzenia, do zobaczenia!
Well, that's it. 6 shows. Fabulous. They got easier to do each time. And it worked really, really well, and I'm thrilled. Now we're going to shoot some prizes and come home.